I don't know. I'm not a
All right,
spectrosexual.
what if he is a space ghost Dracula? Huh?
Wait,
Huh?
okay, well, you're going to have to be more specific. Is he a Dracula that came from Space Ghost? Or is he a ghost?
As I said, he's a space ghost Dracula. Deal with the facts. Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Are they in the proper approach pattern for today?
Negative.
Hold the weapon! Now! Charge the lightning field.
How about the podcast? You want to do that?
How about them podcasts, huh?
Hey, swinging for the fences, they is. Yeah, podcast is going to do it this year, I think.
This is the year. Podcasts are going to win it all. They're going to do it.
The podcasts?
Well, the outfielders are called podcatchers.
Huh. Continue on. I'm intrigued.
I should have had more prepared. I had nothing prepared. Your catcher is just your... Well, no, that's also a podcatcher. Fuck! This doesn't work.
I just have to point out my personal flaws, and that's one of them.
What's wrong with a little peace, love, and understanding? I don't...
Danzig. Danzig's the problem.
Whoa. So no, it's Danzig versus... Okay, wow, that's a...
It's Danzig versus peace, love, and understanding. Yeah. The reason that Danzig has this power, because he has control of both earth, wind, and fire.
Boom!
Welcome back to Dispatch Ajax. This is Jake.
I'm Scap.
We're not talking about Danzig or Dio or podcasts
not yet.
or Outbreak Monkeys.
Oh, they
or
missed that
What
part,
else have we
yeah.
talked about? The Irish, the Scottish, the Kiwis, the Turks, Constantinople, any...
Yeah, our hatred for other ethnic groups, yeah.
I didn't... What? Our respect and lack of understanding?
I thought they were saying.
No, not at all. Not at all.
You totally reject peace, love, and understanding, so I thought maybe that's what we were going. I thought we were going with like a modern Twitter or...
Modern Hitler kind of thing?
Yeah, like JD Vance or like...
Hey, I don't have time to fuck a couch right now, okay? I got a pod. I got to pod, okay? This is episode part 4 of our ongoing and unending search into the history of comics on film.
Honestly, this is more deserving of multiple episodes than our Highlander or Rocky things.
I think that's quality material there, and I stand by it, so...
I still listen to it, but this is rife for actual historical information. And this is part 4 of
This is
this
at least
series.
part 4.
At least
think.
part 4.
True. You know what? That's my bad, everybody. No kink shaming here.
Lay back and think of England.
Thinking of England, that's just what we're going to do on this 4th or 5th part of the episode.
Oh my god.
So I've kind of covered a lot of America, and then we did a little bit of Japan. Previous episodes, especially the last one, focused just on Japan, shorter episode. This time I wanted to spread out and make sure I cover a little bit more of the world. So we're going to be covering a chunk of what was going on in Britain or England.
Well, I mean, it depends. Is it Irish? Is it Scottish? Welsh? Well, no. I mean,
What are those?
England is its own country. We're
We're going to be doing England. I don't think I'm covering any of the British Commonwealths or
okay.
their...
Oh, if it's just England, that's whatever.
Yeah, just England. And then we're going to spread out to some more of Europe, touch some bases there, and then
Europe
head to the Philippines for a little jaunt.
for a child bride. I've got a lot of pent up stuff. Just keep going.
All right. Well, before we get into a little bit of the films, I'd like to give you a little history on comics in England, because I think that might be beneficial for us all. British comics are usually comic anthologies, which are typically aimed at children and are published weekly, although some are also published on a fortnight or monthly schedule. The two most popular British comics, the Beano and the Dandy, those were released in the 1930s.
Oh, those seem problematic.
Yeah. It seems also that some people difficult to track down, but some people just kind of refer to some British comics as dandies.
Interesting.
In reference to the dandy. But those have been going on the 30s and ended the print run in 2012.
Wow.
When it went online. Wow. So that's a long effing run.
That's like Dick Tracy or Bred to Star. You'd be shocked at how long it went.
Yeah. So by the 1950s, the weekly circulation for both had reached 2 million. Trying to explain the enormous popularity of comics in British pop culture during this period, Anita O'Brien, who's the director-curator at London's Cartoon Museum, states, quote, when comics like the Beano and the Dandy were invented back in the 1930s, and through really to the 50s and 60s, these comics were almost the only entertainment available to children in England.
Wow.
Especially like during wartime and whatnot. That's the only thing they had. So originally aimed at the semi-literate working class, in that it replaced the text-based stories of the story papers with picture-based stories, which were less challenging for a poorly educated readership. The comic gradually came to be seen as childish, in part because, due to gradual improvements in public education, children were eventually the only remaining market for a format designed to be unchallenging for the reader. Hence, by the mid-20th century, it was being marketed exclusively towards children. Just as a little baseline, I'm going to get a little more history of popularity of comics and into movies.
Sure. How do you feel like that evolution parallels the American reaction to comic books forcing them to be for children? Do you think it's comparable?
I feel like, at least from my understanding of that time and our research during the Seduction of the Innocent episode, there were plenty of stuff designed for kids, but there were also, they had comics just designed for adults. But that all got wrapped up when they had essentially the Red Scare on comic books and cut the balls off of any comics coming out after that point. And so then I think they kind of just got funneled down into kids stuff, which I think then, if we're trying to relate it to what we're talking about now, that really plays out in how comics are interpreted and put on screen after that. I think in stuff like the Batman TV show, it was stuff that wasn't meant to be challenging in any way and was designed to appeal towards a young audience. Yeah, but we'll jump to, how about 1867? Ali Sloper, or Ali Sloper, I guess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, those sound like very different people.
It's Sloper. Sloper, I would guess?
It's Sloper, yeah. If it's Slopper,
Sloper.
There's probably 2 P's.
Well, there's probably is 2 P's.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
Yeah. So he first appeared in 1867.
Oh, it's a dude?
He's considered one of the earliest comic strip characters, and by some is regarded as the first reoccurring character in comics in general. Ali Sloper, again, possibly the first fictional cartoon character illustrated anywhere in the world. The cartoon strip that he was in, which preceded Punch, was first published in Judy magazine. I just like that Punch and Judy thing. In August 1867. In 1884, he had his first dedicated comic called Ali Sloper's Half Holiday. Now, these strips, which use text narrative beneath unbordered panels, premiered in this issue of Judy, which was a humor magazine rival of the famous Punch. Now, just to do a little context for this next bit, in our first episode, we talked about kind of the beginning of film, right? You had your Horse in Motion in 1880, The Voyage to the Moon in 1902, and the Katzenjammer Kids. So the Katzenjammer Kids were created in 1897 and then made their film debut in 1898. But Ali Sloper had a 2-minute film that was played in theaters in 1898 himself, where he played a man dressed up as a woman, and then the film was reversed. He then had another short film in 1900.
Okay.
And then he had 6 more short films in 1921, all based on Ali Sloper. Now, unfortunately, most of these are lost to time. There are stills on glass plate negatives from some of these films, just singular shots. But from what I could tell, the films are lost. We're going to jump a little bit ahead in time to The Adventures of Jane in 1949. So this was based on the famous comic strip cartoon heroine of the Daily Mirror.
And the great song, Jane.
And some might say one of the earliest British comic into film adaptations, at least in a feature film length. This was fairly cheap. Essentially, it's said to be fairly dreary and lackluster in almost every respect.
Excellent.
Most British comic strip movies that came out about this time are low-budget affairs, so they weren't putting a lot into them. Mm-hmm. But not necessarily everything, because in 1954, we have The Bells of St. Trinians. Now, this is a British comedy film directed by Frank Launder, starring Alistair Sim, if some of you know, my favorite Scrooge.
So is that the one where they have that funny scene where Christmas Day he stands on his head and his nightgown falls down and his help runs away screaming because they've seen
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
He's the best Scrooge. So this is inspired by the British cartoonist Ronald Searle's St. Trinian School. It's a comic strip which focused on the lives of the students and teachers of this fictional school, attempt to get shut down, their headmistress faces issues, financial troubles, blah, blah, blah. You've seen it in a bunch of stuff. And eventually there's a scheme involving a racehorse. We won't get into that for MPA reasons, but it's pretty racy stuff.
Don't
the
wince.
film was among some of the most popular British films to be released in 1954, with the critics praising the comedy and several cast members for the performances. This was the first film to be produced in the film series. There were 3 sequels later produced after this film, one in 57, one in 60, and one in 66. Searle, the cartoonist, he had begun the beginning of the war and continued to do them as a POW in Singapore, but after the war, they became very successful. And by the time the film had come out, Searle had become tired of them.
Wow.
So I guess he stopped doing it. But it was the 3rd most popular movie at the British box office in 1954. And in 2007, they made St. Trinians, a British comedy film, and the 6th in the long-running series of the St. Trinians.
Wow.
So it's still coming out.
Yeah, it's like when they came out with Piranha 3D.
Isn't it Piranha 3 Double D?
No, that's the sequel. There's Piranha 3D, and then there's Piranha 3 Double D. And Piranha 3...
Sorry, I just got excited, personally.
Piranha 3D was done by the same guy who did Crawl, that crocodile movie that we both like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's legit.
Now, we've talked mostly about kind of more comic strippy things, My Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
More stuff like the Bells St. Trinians and Daily Mirror Reporter and stuff like that. But there are reasons that the adventure strip, the source of many of the comic book movie blockbusters since Superman in 78, emerged much later than it did in Britain than in the United States. Now, until the Second World War, most British comic strips were, quote, funnies. No real equivalents to, say, a Flash Gordon or Dick Tracy, let alone British contemporaries of a Superman or Batman or Spider-Man. Now, Britain's own space hero, Dan Dare, pilot of the future, who made his debut in The Eagle in 1950, never made it to the big screen, though there were many abortive attempts to do so. One by the aforementioned Lindsay Anderson in the late 1950s, and the entrepreneur Paul de Savary in the mid-1970s, who wanted to cast James Bond star Roger Moore as Dan Dare. There was a deservedly forgotten CGI television series of Dan Dare, but that's the only time a character like that really made it in any form or fashion. Another reason that the British cinema historically had smaller domestic market than Hollywood. That's insufficient to return the expense of a high-concept special effects picture. So though Saul Kine's Superman and Dale Lawrence's Flash Gordon were both technically British films on account of being shot in British studios and employing British technicians to qualify for that, there was literally nothing British about them.
Yep, that's true.
So the next film we're going to cover is Tiffany Jones from 1972. Now this was produced and directed by British exploitation filmmaker Pete Walker. Hey. And was kind of that Adventures of Jane from 49. It was kind of that story, but for the 1970s. Now Tiffany, who had first appeared in the Daily Sketch as a fashion model who tended to lose her clothes at the faintest narrative contrivance. Now, a relaxation of censorship in the 70s meant that, unlike the previous 1949 feature, Adventures of Jane, Tiffany Jones was able to present its heroine in her natural state, shall we say.
What is this, Benny Hill?
It didn't do so well, but it did prove a feature film adaptation, scandalous as it might be. Now, another one I'd like to cover, though it technically doesn't fall into comic books in the tightest sense, but it needs to be mentioned, and that is Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze.
Ask Warren Ellis about that.
I'd rather not.
Well, you and I specifically have talked to Warren Ellis, and by that I mean we yelled out his name and he turned around and was confused.
Yeah, that happened.
We knew you qualified.
Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze is an action film starring Ron Ely as the pulp hero Doc Savage. Author Lester Dent retained the radio, film, and television rights to the character as part of his contract with Street and Smith Publications, publishers of the Doc Savage pulp magazine. Although Dent succeeded in launching a short-lived radio program, he was never able to interest Hollywood in a Doc Savage film. Upon Dent's death in 1959, his widow, Norma Dent, acquired the radio, film, and TV rights to Doc Savage. Now, the production team of Mark Goodson and Bill Todman announced the intention to produce a Doc Savage to cash in on the popularity of the reissued pulp novels by Bantam Books and the James Bond craze sweeping the movies. The film would be based on the July 1934 pulp novel The Thousand-Headed Man, with Chuck Connors as Doc for a 1966 release. Unfortunately, the producers and Condé Nast Publications, the new copyright owner of the Doc Savage brand, failed to secure the film rights from the estate of Lester Dent. By the time the legal issues had been resolved, the production and cast had moved on to do offbeat western Ride Beyond Vengeance, which I know nothing about.
Ugh.
Only the one-shot comic book movie tie-in published by Gold Key with the cover artwork by James Bama remains the mark that this aborted film ever tried to exist. Last one I'd really want to touch on when it comes to England is Judge Dredd film in 1995. Again, this is an American production starring Sylvester Stallone and Rob Schneider and a bunch of other cool character actors.
Rob Schneider's second build.
It's tough. And you have Max von Sydow, Armand Assante, Jürgen Prochnow, isn't it right?
Yeah, he is. I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah.
But all below the line.
But Rob Schneider, though.
Rob Schneider. Yeah.
He was the animal
yeah.
and the hot chick, so.
Now he's just a piece of shite.
Apparently.
Allegedly. Now, I wanted to touch on this because this was based on the 2000 AD comics line. What is like, I think especially for Western comic fans, when we think of British comics, that's what we think of. We think of heavy metal and 2000 AD.
100%. Yep.
You had a lot of what we've discussed many times before, like the British movement in comics of the late 70s into the 80s. A lot of them cut their teeth and really got their start in the 2000 AD and the heavy metal stuff.
Right. And it's really funny, too, because a lot of the same exact people, some of their first entries into that were writing Doctor Who comics. You had Alan Moore and Warren Ellis and Grant Morrison. They were all writing Doctor Who comics adaptations, and then they moved into stuff that's still influential today that led to the British invasion of the mid-1980s in American comics.
Hell yeah. There were other films that were based on comics, but there wasn't that much more, and there weren't really that many successful big-time features that came out in England. So really it's just kind of about that beginning and kind of stuff that's come out relatively recent, like Dredd 2012, which was awesome.
I'm surprised they haven't made a sequel to it. It's really good.
Yeah. It's fucking great.
It is good.
I know.
Shut up! You don't know.
I'd like to move to other parts of the world. Just give you just a little spice. What are we tasting in these other countries? Because a lot of other countries in Europe were still and consistently have been making movies based on comics while we've been discussing all of these other things over these past 3-4 episodes.
Very true.
So what I'd like to cover, we'll go to Turkey.
As well we should.
There is the Karoglan, Alte Don Gelen Yigit. That was released in April 1965.
It's a good Irish name. Yeah.
That was the first of 7 pictures of the Karoglan comic books. The creator Suat Yalaz was also the producer and director, and this is based on his work there. Now, Kerrigan, if I remember right, it's kind of like a historical comic book action thing.
Okay.
You know, he's like a Turk adventurer, worked as scout for Genghis Khan, and he goes on adventures exploring around and, you know, doing what people do with Turkey.
Eat who I eat. It's the oldest story.
Yeah, there were films from 65 to 72 starring Kerrigan, so it was a popular character that it kept coming out in both comic books and in movies again and again. Probably Italy's, I would say, their biggest continuous comic book character to film adaptation they've had. Now, in Italy, there was a Criminal, which is a 1966 superhero film directed and written by Umberto Lenzi. So this is a film about a thief and a murderer called Criminal, played by Glenn Saxon,
It's not just a
who
clever
escapes
name.
from prison and is chased after by Inspector Milton. It was followed by a sequel, Il Marchio di Criminal, or The Mark of Criminal. This is based, again, on a Fumetti Neri series. Please go back if you want to check out what Fumetti Neri is. That started in August 1964. The comics often contain themes of sex and violence, which included scantily clad women, lots of strangling and stabbing.
Not to be confused with the George Perez work, Sex and Violence.
No. Close, but not the same. So, Umberto Lenzi stated he initially wanted to make a comic book inspired by Diabolique, but he was unable to get the rights for Diabolique because those were purchased by Dino De Laurentiis, who would then go on to produce Diabolique, which we spoke about a couple episodes ago. Lenzi then attempted an adaptation of Satanique, but eventually settled on Criminal.
By Ed Brubaker.
Which is coming, I think, on Prime? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't remember what platform, but it is coming, and that's kind of crazy to me, honestly.
So Lenzi argued with Criminal's creator, Luciano Secchi, about the changes he was making with the character, which Lenzi later described as, quote, a bit Nazi skin fascist.
Woohoo!
We made a fun film, unquote.
Chef's kiss. No notes. No notes.
So Lenzi wasn't able to make Satanique, but Piero Vivarelli in 1968 got to make it. Again, this is based on the Italian comic series Satanique, and was released to moderate financial success in Italy. It tells the story of a withered old hag who turns into a beautiful young woman after drinking a youth formula. Now, in the comics, Satanique is not an old woman before the serum, but rather a disfigured young scientist, and kind of goes in a different direction in a lot of ways. But they made kind of a sexy, horror isn't the right word necessarily, but kind of more thriller, in Satanique. So you're kind of getting a flavor of what Italy's doing comic-wise in the 60s.
Don't forget about Tex. Remember Cowboys and Aliens? Wasn't that Italian?
I actually had Tex on there, but I had to drop it just because we didn't have room.
Sure. We talked about it during.
Of course, it's the one that I literally have all of the stuff, and I deleted a bunch because we didn't have room. And the one that you point out is the one that I fucking chopped.
Well, I can edit it out. It's very easy.
Of course. Next, we'll travel to Yugoslavia, where we get Mirko and Slavko from 1973.
Worker and Parasite.
This is live-action adaptation of the popular Yugoslav comic book about two young partisan couriers in World War II.
Oh, wow.
The story takes place in Serbia in 1941 during World War II, when only children remain in a village after a German punitive expedition.
Oof.
But they too find a way to oppose the occupier and join the partisans.
Nice.
So the comic started in 1963 and was drawn by Desmir Zizovic Buina, I think.
Sure. It's hard to say. It's topsy-turvy world we live in.
Words, they're difficult these days. I don't know how to say them.
I don't know how you kids used to do it back then. But.
I don't know. We used to read words. Now you gotta say them. Oh, what does this world come to? So that was Yugoslavia. That's kind of a flashpoint they had in comics to movies for them. But in Denmark, they had quite a bit, or at least quite a bit of one thing. So in Denmark, they made The Father of Four, the 1953 Danish family comedy directed by Alice O. Fredericks. and starring
Sounds like a sitcom.
Ib Schonberg and Brigitte Brune.
The Brigitte Brune?
The Brigitte Brune.
Oh, wow. What a get.
Hey, she was. I want to check out to see what Brigitte Brune looked like.
It doesn't matter. Brigitte Nelson is going to come down and throw the fuck down on set. Not even involved in the production. You know how she gets.
Oh, man, we all know how she gets. Mm-hmm. So this film is based on the comic strip Kaj Engholm and Olav Host.
Hagar the Horrible.
This was the first film in a series of 8 Father of 4 films made by Asa Films. 1 each year from 1953 to 1961.
That sounds about right.
So in 1947, Håkan Steffensen, editor of the Politiken newspaper, he wanted to start running a comic strip that depicted typical Danish life. This was a response to the surge of American comic strips flooding European marketplaces in the post-war years. Steffensen asked cartoonist Kaj Engholm for ideas. Engholm then asked his friend, advertising executive Olav Host, who proposed this idea. They roughed out the story together of a single father of 4 children with the oldest daughter running the household, agreeing that the father would be a single parent without ever creating a backstory for the mother's absence. In interviews, whenever the authors were asked, "Where's the mother?" they would always reply, "I don't know, but we promised to look into it." The comic strip first appeared in 1948 and ran daily for 40 years on the back pages of Politiken.
That's all right.
Up until 1955. It ran from 48 to 55. Then it went to the Berlingske Tidende newspaper until 1988. The text was written by Haast until he retired from the strip in 1973, after which it was written by a variety of writers. And then Engholm drew the strip until his death in 1988. But they made a lot of films. It must have been quite popular to keep going year after year for 8 straight years.
Yeah, we wouldn't know anything about that in America.
Well, at least not the same film. I mean, nobody's making 8 sequels back to 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 back.
Nobody makes Fast and Furious movies.
Those take much longer, though. But they are much more involved, and it's a different time. So, well, they're both about family. So
they sure are.
And Corona.
And DVD players. VCR DVD combo players.
That's just like your opinion, man.
Paul Walker is on the moon. Moonwalker.
Okay. Next we'll go to Finland for the
Nazis.
I don't even know how to...
Nazi sympathizers.
All right. Well, this is about their comics to film bit, which I don't think has that have to do with it, but this is the Pekka Pupa or Poupe.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how to say it. This one's a tough one. The English translation might better be described as Pete Blockhead.
Oh, I like it already. Like wait, like those Gumby characters?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
There's no way we can ever know. It's lost to time.
But let's dig up George Powell. Hurry!
No, so this was kind of, I mean, it looks kind of like a Laurel and Hardy vibe.
Okay,
vaudevillian. There's a guy in a suit, and then another guy, a taller guy, and he's got like a large hat. So but it was like a duo comedy series,
right?
Directed by Vil Salminen.
Oh, the Vil Salminen, yeah.
The Vil Salminen, yes. And so 53 was the first, but there was another one in 53, and then one in 54, and then one in 55, and another one in 55, and a third one in 55, and then one in 57, another one in 57, another one in 57, and then 58, another one in 58, one in 59, and one in 1960. And then they've had tributes to these characters on a film in 85, 86, and 2005.
They're not like those Reddit tributes, though, where they jerk off onto the screen of the thing and then put her on the...
No, please tell me. I know not of what you speak of, Skip.
Oh, really? You have no idea what I'm talking about?
No,
of all people, have no idea what I'm talking about.
What is this pornographies? I've never heard. I know not.
So, when Ron Jeremy and a woman love each other very much...
They never speak again.
One files a police report.
Oh, woof.
If I don't think about it, he doesn't exist.
So anyway, we're going from the Finlands to the Netherlands, where we get
I think there's only one Finland, but you said the Finlands. I think there's only the one.
Prove it. Sjors and Siemi, otherwise George and Jimmy, which is the Dutch adaptation of the comic strip Winnie Winkle, specifically the character Periwinkle from that strip.
We always talk about it over the water cooler. Yep. Me and these fictional people, apparently.
So the difference between the American original and the Dutch adaptation is that Sjors, Perry, forms a duo with the Africa-born Siemi,
Oh boy.
or Jimmy. They are raised by Sally and the Colonel. The Colonel regularly finds himself on the receiving end of their pranks. In return, Sjors and Siemi, or George and Jimmy, are outsmarted by their scheming classmate Dickie, although they manage to stay best friends. Now, this was a popular comic strip and spawned 7 live-action movies
No, Jesus.
made between 1955 and 1977 by Henk van der Linden.
It was made into a TV show called Bob Loves Abishola. You don't know this reference?
No, I don't know that one.
Oh my. We'll visit that later.
Oh, okay. I just looked it up. What? Some of the things that you know and bring out disgust me.
And that's coming from you. So that's saying something.
It's really, truly saying something.
Depravity on an unknown level.
One might say, I'm fucked up. So we're just going to take a quick dip into France. We'll swim this in there for a bit. And I just want to touch on just a few of their characters. So Asterix and Obelix have had many animated films.
It's Belgian.
That's true.
Just like Tintin.
I believe the films are made in France, though.
That might be.
So,
Because I don't know what they do in Belgium.
they make chocolate, my friend.
They don't even have Hercule Poirot. That's British. Because of Agatha Christie.
We all do, actually.
But yeah, okay, yeah.
There's also Lucky Luke, who's had both live-action animated films from the 70s up until 2004. Actually, 2007. Wait, 2009.
The latest which starring Brandon Routh or something. I don't know. It's like Dylan Dog. Like, nobody fucking knows. Nobody remembers these things.
In France, Lucky Luke is a big-time character.
Okay.
And then, of course, as you said, The Adventures of Tintin or Tonton, many both animated and live-action adaptations from the 40s up until 2011. So the last thing we're going to do is travel to a different island. This one a little bit close to America, but has... I don't know if that'd be closer to... I don't know. Who cares? We're traveling to a different island, far away from Europe and America, we'll say that. So we're traveling to a different part of the world now, its own islands. We're going to go to the Philippines, which has a robust comic and comic film adaptation scene. In fact, they seem to love both comics and comic adaptations there. So I'll have to talk about Marcial Mars Ravelo. He was born in 1916, died in 1988, and he's a Filipino comic book cartoonist and graphic novelist, and he's dubbed the King of Philippine Comics.
Wow. Jack Kirby, eat your heart out.
Oh, yeah. No, this is like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and maybe Chris Claremont all rolled into one.
That's an odd pairing.
Yeah, it's a throuple, rather.
Beyond the grave.
So he made comics like Darna, Diazabel, Captain Barbell, Lastic Man. Yes, that's right. Lastic Man.
I've heard of that one.
Bondying, Varga, Flash Bomba, Tiny Tony, and many, many others.
Tiny Tony.
Yeah. Tiny Tony, huh? Tiny Tony. And so I'm just going to cover a few of these, because a lot of these comics that he made got turned into films, and even series of films. Very popular. But I just want to hit a few of the big ones. So one is Ang Ponde, a blacksmith, or Ponde, named Flavio, who forges a dagger from a meteorite. Upon learning it can magically transform into a sword, he uses it to fight evil, as you do.
Mm-hmm.
As he is a normal human, he makes his own costume to protect his identity. While initially using it to fight human criminals and bandits, he ends up going to battle with witches, ghosts, demons, and finally finding his arch-rival Lizardo, the Demon Prince. So over the years, there have been both TV and film adaptations, and the first big one is the 1980 film directed by Fernando Poe Jr., who also stars as Aang Pandey. This film was followed by 3 sequels, also featuring Poe. There's one in 81, another in 82, another in 84, and all these films are shown at the Metro Manila Film Festival in their respective years. Now, there's been an animated TV series dubbed as the first full-length Filipino animation series that was shown in the mid-1980s, and it was patterned after the storyline of the first movie. Now, another one I want to cover is Baroque, or Baroque, B-A-R-O-K, Baroque.
Well, okay.
I don't know.
They were colonized by the Spanish and then us. So
it's a bit of Spanish and English. But we'll go with Baroque, I guess. This is considered to be one of the most popular comic characters in the Philippines. This one was created by Filipino cartoonist Bert Surreal in 1973. So this is a Stone Age Philippine comic book character. Baroque was described as Surreal as a lead character and one of the equivalents in the Philippine comic book industry of the American cartoon characters, the Flintstones. He was a prehistoric caveman who carried a large spiked club.
classic.
Baroque had been featured in 3 Filipino films. A 1979 version starred the comedian actor Chiquito as Baroque. There's also a 1976, the official film entry of the Metro Manila Film Festival, as we spoke of before. I'd also like to speak about Captain Barbell. Now, he's said to be inspired by Captain America, and something of a spoof of Shazam as well, with a little bit of Cinderella thrown in there. Originally a scrawny boy named Tenteng that is bullied by his stepbrothers, a genie grants him the power to become a muscular hero with a magical barbell.
Is it Shaquille O'Neal or Sinbad? Which one?
Strangely, it's neither. To emphasize this, early versions of the character were shirtless and designed off of circus strongmen. The movie version, however, popularized giving Captain Barbell a yellow top. So Captain Barbell came into the screen in 1964, where Bob Solo first portrayed the captain. Produced by Delanor Productions and directed by Hermino Butch Batista. It's a cool name. Captain Barbell's alter ego was called Ting Ting and played by Dolphy.
Of course it was.
Yeah. In 1965, a year after Captain Barbell's film debut, Fernando Poe Jr. produced the film Captain Philippines at Boy Pinoy. It also starred Bob Soler, the first Captain Barbell, as Captain Philippines, and Lou Salvador Jr. as Boy Pinoy. The end up, Captain Barbell would have 5 movies made in total about him. Now, there are a lot of interesting characters. A lot of them are kind of based on American superheroes, but with their own Filipino spin on things.
Oh yeah. We're familiar with those.
Are we?
Yes. You don't remember Catman and Lethal Track?
Oh, yeah. But wasn't that?
No, it was Philippines. It was Philippines. But it was like cobbled together from a bunch of other crazy bullshit.
Yeah, that feels like so. Also, like, what are they trying to? I guess, yeah, I guess it is similar in ways. I mean, there's like a Wonder Woman-esque character that looks kind of like Wonder Woman, but then has different power sets, does different things. So, you know, Catman is kind of like Batman, but if Batman had mind powers.
Mind powers!
Yeah. Catman! But there's a plethora of Filipino comics to check out and Filipino movies based on comics. There were just so many, like, I just had to pick a few because we could be here all night going through all of them because they made so many about their comics. There were so many that I skipped over for all over Europe, but we only had to pick and choose some to just give you a sample of what was going on because you see here that there were movies being made from comic books all over the world. That this wasn't just an America thing. This was everywhere. Anywhere that had comics was making movies based on comics.
Damn right.
It's been going on, as we see from the 1890s up until today, with especially big times, kind of before our comic boom really took off. It was booming in other countries. You know, you see the 50s, 60s, 70s, these European countries and the Philippines and, you know, Eastern Europe, they were shooting from the hip, throwing all of these comic book characters out on screen. So we were kind of catching up in a way. Although, like I covered before, we were still putting out comic book characters into film. But it's about to pick up and really, I think, hit a new height in next episode. So,
whoa! The 19th episode of the series.
Please stick around for that if you are intrigued to see where we go. How much further off topic can I get? Only time will tell.
No, I think that applies to me more than you, but
We do hope that you have enjoyed this particular look at some comic movies around the world. And please listen back to the previous episodes here if you want to kind of get a fuller picture of the history of comics, comic strips, graphic novels, storytelling, adapted to films and movies. Or go back in and listen to some of our other classic episodes, like the ones about Rocky or Highlander.
yes, the longest running, most annoying ones. Yes, please tune into those.
Or other classic ones, our Seduction of the Innocent. That was a really good episode, really informative.
Cowboys and Aliens,
Cowboys
Mandela
and
Effect.
Aliens. We got all types of cool stuff.
Our 50th episode's great.
So check out the back catalog. And if you like any of what you're hearing, if you think maybe your friends, family, loved ones, cats, dogs, anybody might like it, tell them about it. You could share it on social media. That'd be kind of cool. Or even if you don't do that, if you wouldn't mind, if you're digging what you're hearing, just go leave a rating, go leave a review, just a quick, little summary or whatever. You can write whatever you like. We don't care, just as long as you say something.
Just call
If you
your
like-
mother. What's it gonna hurt?
Yeah, call your mother.
So call me, maybe.
If you wouldn't mind leaving us 5 Captain Barbells on the podcast app of your choice, Apple Podcast, that might be good. It helps us get seen and get heard. It spreads the word.
It's the word, have you heard?
Bird. Larry Bird.
The end.
We appreciate that you've stuck around to listen to this and that you've listened to any of us at all. It is meaningful to us that someone's out there listening. So just want to say thank you. That's all. Just to thank you. We appreciate it.
If you contact Jake secretly, he will come suck your dick. He's thankful.
I'm debating it. All right. Thinking about it.
We're still talking to the legal team.
What's up, Mr. Snips? What do you say? Can I do this?
It's like you're sitting around a table full of the inanimate dolls. You're like, oh, well, what do you think I should do?
Reginald over here, he has something else to say. What's that, Richie?
I know Professor Pickles.
Howdy doody ass looking mother. Skip, what should we do?
Kill ourselves, probably.
Woof. All right.
Please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you have paid your tabs. Make sure you've cleaned up after yourselves to some sort of reasonable. Please make sure you have supported your local comic shops and retailers. And from Dispatch Ajax, which is us, we would like to say Godspeed, fair wizard.
Toodles.
Please, go away.